After years of gaslighting and disrespect, my girlfriend publicly humiliated me at my work promotion party by openly flirting and then yelling, "If you have a problem, use the exit." I calmly took her advice, walked out, and moved out that night. She cried, called me dramatic, and months later tried to sabotage my new relationship with a calculated lie. I responded by posting all the evidence, collapsing her public victim narrative. My name is Ethan, I'm 28, and I'm a back-end developer. I was recently promoted to technical lead after 2 years of non-stop work. I joined the company fresh out of university doing basic debugging tasks. Little by little I advanced, junior developer, then mid-level, later senior, until I reached the position I have now. The promotion came with a 30% raise and real company participation. No empty promises, concrete money, and stability. I'm introverted, quiet, and quite routine-oriented. I prefer a small meeting to a crowded bar. My ideal Friday is ordering food, turning on the PC I built myself, and getting lost in an RPG. I have a group of university friends with whom I play online almost every weekend. We've been running the same Dungeons & Dragons campaign for 3 years. And honestly, those virtual sessions give me more than many social events I attend out of obligation. Still, I'm constant, reliable, the type of person who remembers birthdays, arrives on time, and keeps their promises. I thought that was a solid foundation in a relationship, but I discovered that for some people, being stable, boring, and disciplined is almost an offense. Clara, my 27-year-old girlfriend, is practically my opposite. She works as a stylist and dedicates her nights to creating content for social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, that whole ecosystem. She has around 50,000 followers, enough to feel like she lives on a kind of permanent stage. She uploads carefully planned photos, precisely edited, accompanied by phrases about living authentically, while she spends 3 hours adjusting lights and poses for each post. Her social media career started small. Initially, she showed her work in the salon, makeovers, coloring techniques, style tips. That seemed interesting to me. It brought her clients and motivated her. But one day, one of her lifestyle videos went viral, over 300,000 views in one night. Since then, she's been trapped in the adrenaline of the metrics. Clara shines everywhere. She greets everyone. She knows someone on every corner. We arrive at a restaurant, and it turns out she studied with the hostess. We walk into a coffee shop, and she follows the barista on Instagram. We go to a concert, and she says the security guard recognizes her from previous events. At first, I found it charming. Over time, exhausting. When we started dating 3 years ago, I thought our differences were complementary. She pulled me out of my comfort zone, and I offered her stability. She took me to concerts, parties, and plans I would normally avoid, while I handled the boring but necessary part. Paying bills on time, organizing medical appointments, remembering car maintenance. It was the classic opposites attract, or so I repeated to myself to justify signals I ignored. The first year together was intense and exciting. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was cheering up the whole party. I was on the sofa talking to the host's cat. She approached, called me mysterious, and I was smitten. There was a time when I felt like every day brought something new. Sometimes she'd show up at my door with food after her shift, and we'd end up watching series until 3 a.m. For the first time, I felt part of something vibrant. In the second year, small cracks began to appear, but I remained convinced they were normal couple things. However, there were behaviors that were hard to ignore. Her flirty attitude with other men, that slightly exaggerated smile, unnecessary touching, the way she prioritized recording a video over going on our date. More than once, she canceled plans because the light was perfect for filming. Her comments about my life being too simple, too quiet, too apathetic also increased. But I insisted that we loved each other, and she repeated the same thing every time I showed discomfort. A year ago, we moved in together. At that point, she practically lived at my apartment, so it seemed logical. Also, her lease was ending, and she was having trouble paying the rent for her studio. Sharing expenses sounded fair, but in the end I covered about 70% of everything. Her income was irregular. Some weeks the salon was full, Others, she barely had a few appointments. Social media brought in some money from sponsorships and affiliate links, but it was little and not stable. I could afford to help while she built her career. Only that provisional stage never ended. Between new lights, backdrops, accessories, and clothes for videos, her money always went into content, not household expenses. If I tried to point it out, she'd get offended and say I didn't support her goals. And that's when the clearest signals appeared, so visible I should have taken them as direct warnings. When we went out, her behavior changed in front of certain men. In a bar, she'd brush the waiter's arm while ordering. In a club, she'd lean too close to the DJ to whisper in his ear, resting her hand on his shoulder. She'd make prolonged eye contact with strangers who immediately responded. It was a flirty energy that went beyond simple friendliness. There was a situation a few months after we started dating that should have been my end point. The night that ended up opening my eyes had begun long before, months ago, with signals I preferred to ignore. One of the most evident situations occurred at a concert we went to together. Throughout the show, Clara dedicated herself to talking with the man sitting next to us. And it wasn't a casual chat about the current movie or the weather. It was blatant flirting. She touched his arm, posed for selfies as if they were old friends, and even exchanged social media accounts. All of this happened in front of me, without the slightest attempt at discretion. When I tried to put my arm around her waist, she pulled away so naturally that I froze. I waited until we were on the way home to talk about it, thinking it must be a misunderstanding. But as soon as I mentioned how uncomfortable the situation had made me feel, the conversation twisted against me. "Ethan, are you serious?" she said, as if I were a child having a tantrum. I was making contacts. That guy works in the music industry. I tried to explain how I had perceived it, but I only got a sigh and an impatient look. "You're jealous, and honestly, that's not attractive. I'm an extrovert. Sociable people talk, touch, laugh. Not everything is flirting." The response unnerved me, but I tried to keep calm. The second time I tried to address her behavior, I was labeled insecure. "What do you want me to do? Put a bag over my head so no one looks at me?" The third time, she compared me to her ex. That was her definitive blow. Every time she brought up that reference, the discussion would stop because it made me feel like I was repeating patterns that, according to her, had deeply scarred her. "This is the same thing he used to do," she reproached me. "He tried to control me, and I won't go through that again." The fourth time was even more direct. "Maybe you're just not confident enough to be with someone like me." I need a confident man. With those phrases repeated so many times, I started to think the problem was me. That maybe I was exaggerating, that perhaps I was misinterpreting innocent situations. So I tucked away my doubts, swallowed everything, and tried to become that calm boyfriend who doesn't react when his partner acts like she's single in public. Classic mistake. Every boundary I let slide turned into the perfect foundation for worse violations to appear later. And since I had already started doubting my own feelings, she understood that she could push a little further each time after so many similar episodes. The Friday that ended up turning my life around arrived, ironically, in the context of something that should have been a personal celebration. My team leader, Matt, had organized a game night on his apartment building's rooftop to celebrate my promotion to tech lead. For me, it wasn't a small achievement. It had been 2 years of endless workdays, weekends studying frameworks while others went out with friends, nights of urgent debugging when something broke in production, and I was the only one who deeply knew that system module. 2 years demonstrating that I could lead, that I wasn't afraid of complicated projects, that I could handle my tasks and help newer colleagues at the same time. Being promoted was much more than a 30% raise. It was feeling for the first time that the people I admired recognized my work. Even Matt, who had 15 years in the sector and had worked at 3 major companies, one of which went public, publicly told me that he saw true potential in me. Those words meant much more than he realized. I wanted that night to be perfect. I wanted my colleagues to meet Clara, to see that my life wasn't just work, that I had someone by my side I was proud of. I had spent months telling them about her, highlighting her work as a content creator, her supposed creativity, her ambition to build her own brand. I presented her as a motivated, talented, interesting woman. Knowing we would be late again didn't surprise me anymore. It was like a silent routine I had learned to accept to avoid arguments that never went anywhere. I sat in the chair, watching my mobile screen as I scrolled up and down, checking notifications without really reading anything. I saw the minutes tick by with that mix of resignation and accumulated fatigue that one doesn't dare to acknowledge out loud. I didn't want to provoke another confrontation, especially on a day that was supposed to be important to me. So I took a deep breath and just waited. When Clara finally made her appearance, she did so with that energy she always deployed when she wanted attention. She greeted those nearby with grace, introduced herself to some of my colleagues, and had a short conversation with Matt's girlfriend. She also took out her phone, took photos from different angles, and uploaded it all to her stories as if it were a kind of personal ritual. Until that moment, everything seemed relatively normal. I even felt a little relieved, as if there was a remote possibility that everything would go smoothly. Unfortunately, that balance lasted so little it almost felt like an illusion. Matt showed up with his neighbor Felix, who had come to take care of the sound equipment. Felix had the perfect image of the alternative musician: tattoos on both arms, an old t-shirt of an almost forgotten band, an intentionally messy hairstyle, and that relaxed attitude of someone who lives between small concerts, local bars, and cheap tours. I recognized him immediately because months ago, Clara had uploaded several stories from a concert where he was playing. That immediately set off an internal alarm in me. I didn't take long to notice how her dynamic changed as soon as she saw him. It was an instant change, as if she had activated a completely new persona. She went from being distracted on her phone to introducing herself to Felix with exaggerated energy. She got so close, she seemed to be seeking his attention at any cost. Suddenly, she was extremely interested in the music selection, touching his arm while commenting on his tattoos, laughing as if he were saying the most brilliant things, and posing for photos with her hand resting on his waist. She even started talking about the local music scene as if they were old friends, completely ignoring that I was barely 5 steps away, observing the scene. And worst of all, everyone noticed. Amanda looked at me from her table with an expression that mixed empathy and secondhand embarrassment. Matt's girlfriend whispered something in his ear, and he, after looking at Clara and Felix, looked back at me with that uncomfortable gesture you make when you know something is wrong but don't know how to intervene. I felt my face heat up, a mix of rage, humiliation, and exhaustion. Still, I tried to maintain composure. This was my event, organized to celebrate my promotion. I needed to act professionally even though inside I felt something breaking. When Felix stepped away to look for a cable, I approached Clara and said in a low voice, "Hey, can we talk outside for a moment?" She didn't look up from her phone. "Why? What's wrong now?" "It's quick," I replied, trying to sound as calm as possible. She finally looked up, and I saw her expression change from distracted to visibly irritated. "Seriously, you want to do this here? At your own event?" I tried to keep my voice down. It was obvious that several people were listening to our conversation. "Just for a moment. Nothing more." "Talk about what, Ethan?" Her tone rose slightly. Several conversations around us stopped. Amanda pretended to check her phone, but was clearly listening to us. "Let's just step out for a moment," I insisted. She let out a laugh that pierced me like a knife. It was anything but friendly. It was the kind of laugh that makes you feel small. "Let me guess. You have a problem with me talking to Felix? You're uncomfortable again." My silence was interpreted as a yes. "No, seriously," she continued, raising her voice even more. "If talking to someone bothers you so much, no one is forcing you to stay here. Ethan, see the exit? Then use it." And then silence fell over the place like a concrete block. Matt froze mid-sentence. Amanda's eyes widened. Felix, who had returned, stopped near the equipment, watching the scene uncomfortably, wanting to disappear. And there I was, in front of everyone, receiving that public humiliation at an event celebrating my work, my effort, and my promotion. I felt a surge of emotions difficult to describe: surprise, sadness, shame, but also a clarity I had never had. Clara had dismissed my feelings many times before, but it was the first time she had done it in front of my colleagues, in a place that represented something important to me, and in a tone that showed zero respect. It took me barely 10 seconds to decide. I put my drink on the nearest table, looked at her directly, and said with absolute calm, "Thanks for making it clear." And I left. No shouting, no reproaches. I walked toward the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. When the doors closed, I felt such intense liberation that I had to lean against the metal wall. It was as if I had been holding my breath for years and could finally breathe. I drove back to the apartment in complete silence. No music, no overthinking. Simply letting my body act on inertia. When I arrived, I parked in my usual spot and went up the stairs because I needed to move, to feel like I was progressing, even if only physically. When I opened the door, the place no longer felt like my home. It felt small, loaded, alien, as if I had been living in a cage without realizing it. I started packing immediately. I went straight to the closet and drawers, selecting the essentials: work clothes, hygiene items, my laptop, my chargers, my important documents. I took out my hard drive with all my personal projects. Everything went into my backpack and my sports bag. It took me about 30 minutes, but every second felt like a reminder of everything I had overlooked for years. While gathering my things, I couldn't help but notice Clara's overwhelming presence in every corner. Her makeup spread across the bathroom counter, clothes thrown over the bedroom chair, her ring light set up in a corner as if it were a personal studio. All of that hit me with brutal clarity. She had taken over the space, but had never truly contributed to it. I called my friend Owen. We were the same age. He worked as a paramedic and lived on the other side of the city. We had always been close friends, the kind who don't need to talk every day to know they are there. "Brother, can I stay at your place for a while?" "What happened?" he asked, concerned. "Clara told me to leave my own event, so I did, and now I'm leaving the apartment too." There was a short silence, the kind of silence where a friend processes the gravity of what you just told him. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. That's a real friendship. It doesn't need lengthy explanations to decide to help you." Exactly 20 minutes later, Owen rang the doorbell. He helped me carry my things to his truck without asking unnecessary questions. We drove to his place in a comfortable silence, and when we arrived, he already had the sofa prepared, clean towels folded, and a spot in his bathroom for my things. "Do you want to talk about this now?" he asked. "Not yet. Thank you for everything. Stay as long as you need." I lay down on his sofa that night, silenced my phone, and for the first time in months, I felt genuine calm. No tension, no anticipating the next attack, no walking on eggshells, just silence. Around 2 a.m., my phone screen started lighting up repeatedly. Clara had returned to the apartment, and seeing me absent, she had lost control. Message after message appeared on the screen. "Where are you? Why are you doing this? Come back now. You're exaggerating. I can't believe you're destroying 3 years over one comment. Everyone at the party thinks you're out of your mind." I read each one with a coldness that surprised me. There was no rage, no sadness, just an absolute clarity I had never felt before. And so, for the first time, I was certain I had done the right thing. From the outside, everything looked so obvious it was almost insulting. But when you're in the middle of the storm, it's hard to recognize it. There were no apologies from Clara, no signs that she understood what she had said or how she had treated me. The only thing she showed was anger over the fact that this time I had done exactly what she claimed I could do: leave. I replied only once, without embellishments or beating around the bush. "I'm just doing what you said. You told me you weren't holding me back and that the door was right there, so I left." After sending that, I muted the conversation and went to sleep. Saturday dawned quietly. Owen made breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, and some fruit. We ate while watching TV, not paying too much attention to what was on screen. Around noon, Clara's calls started coming in one after another. I didn't answer any. In fact, I let every attempt go straight to voicemail. She left 7 messages, each with a more anxious tone than the last. By Sunday, it wasn't just her. Her friends also started texting me. People I barely knew were sending messages as if they were intimate parts of my life. "You're overreacting." She didn't mean it. "Don't throw away 3 years over a trifle." She's devastated. You have to talk to her. I even heard my own mother's voice saying, "Ethan, honey, maybe you should have talked to her before leaving. 3 years aren't abandoned like that over an argument." And there was the root of the problem. Everyone treated the situation as if it were an isolated episode, a random comment I had taken too personally. No one saw the times Clara had pushed my boundaries, the occasions when she ignored how I felt, or how she managed to make me question myself for expecting a minimum of respect. For them, that night had been the only scene. For me, just the end of a long movie. Sunday night, Clara showed up in front of the building where Owen lived. I saw her approach from the window with smeared makeup and desperation painted on her face. A part of me felt sorry for her, the same part that had tried for 3 years to be understanding, patient, and the partner she wanted. But the larger part remembered clearly how she had mocked me in front of my coworkers, how she made me look insignificant to everyone. She rang the buzzer several times until Owen answered. "I need to talk to Ethan." Her voice sobbed through the intercom. "Please, it's urgent." Owen's response was as clear as it was forceful. "Ethan doesn't want to talk to you. You told him he wasn't being held back and that if he had a problem, he could leave. That's what he did. There's nothing difficult to understand." "You don't understand. It's an emergency," she insisted. "I work as a paramedic," he replied. "I know what an emergency is. This isn't one. You need to leave." Clara stayed outside for about 10 more minutes, crying and at times shouting toward the windows. Meanwhile, Owen and I continued watching TV, eating leftover pizza from the night before, completely ignoring the spectacle unfolding below. Eventually, she gave up and left. On Monday at work, I expected the worst. I thought people would make comments about what happened on Friday, or that there would be uncomfortable glances everywhere. However, I found the opposite. Matt approached me during our coffee break. "Hey, I wanted to tell you something," he commented. "What Clara said to you that night was not okay. We all heard it. You handled it better than anyone." At lunchtime, Amanda messaged me on Slack. "I thought you were going to stay and take it. When I saw you walk toward the elevator, I thought, finally, you deserve better." My colleagues, without justifications or filters, had seen what I had spent years excusing. And for the first time in a long time, I no longer felt like I was imagining things. I felt understood, but Clara was far from done with me. That same afternoon, she began her campaign on Instagram, black and white photographs. She posed with a melancholic air, looking out windows, seeking that aesthetic of sadness that certain profiles love so much. The texts accompanying the images were small masterpieces of emotional manipulation. 3 years ruined over a simple misunderstanding. He left me right when I'm struggling with my mental health. Sometimes the one you thought would always be with you just leaves, learning to heal after an unexpected abandonment. The message was transparent. I was cold, insensitive, almost controlling. I had left without reason. She was the victim who just wanted to be herself, the innocent woman who had male friends and a boyfriend who wouldn't tolerate it. Her audience quickly reacted. "You're a queen. It's his loss. You're worth more." But some people who were at the party on Friday didn't stay quiet. Amanda commented on one of her posts before she could delete it. "Clara, I was there. You told him he wasn't being held back and that if he had a problem he should leave, in front of everyone. He just followed your instructions." The comment reached 47 likes before she decided to delete the entire post. She tried again with another manipulative phrase. "When you defend yourself and they call it abandonment." Matt's girlfriend replied, "Defending yourself is talking in private." What you did was publicly humiliate him at his work event. The post disappeared within an hour. By Tuesday, her friends had turned the matter into a coordinated campaign. Her best friend published a long story talking about men who can't stand strong women and emotional manipulation disguised as boundaries. The others started sharing content about controlling men who isolate women from their circles. The insinuation Clara dropped. That idea that I was one of those men who control, forbid, and monitor kept echoing in my mind for days. It was such a ridiculous accusation that it hurt. Never, not once, did I tell her who she could talk to, what friends to see, or what activities to do. On the contrary, I always tried to give her space, respect her friendships, and her time. But for her, asking for the bare minimum, simple respect, coherence, dignified treatment, amounted to behaving, in her words, as a covert controller, as if the basic need to feel respected were some kind of crime. That accusation was the final straw. Not an impulsive explosion, but a silent, firm decision, born of endless weariness. That same day, I blocked her on everything that could be blocked. Calls, messages, social media, even LinkedIn. Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if she tried to contact me there with some tragic speech about ruined career opportunities or some excuse involving her personal growth. Owen, always able to simplify what I overcomplicated, told me I should have done it sooner. Days sooner, according to him. And the truth is, he was right. I had just endured too much, hoping things would fix themselves, as if the emotional wear and tear weren't leaving me empty inside. The curious thing was that once I cut all contact with Clara, my life began to organize itself, almost as if it had been waiting for that moment. I fell into a routine that at first seemed monotonous, but slowly became a refuge. Work, sleep on Owen's sofa, go to the gym, repeat. For the first time in months, I slept without tension in my jaw, without waking up with a racing heart or that bitter feeling in my stomach, wondering what mood she would be in when I got home. It was a silent, but real, calm. And as the days passed, that silence turned into peace, a peace I hadn't remembered in years. I no longer walked on eggshells, no longer analyzed every phrase before saying it, no longer had to mentally prepare myself to avoid some absurd argument. I simply existed, breathed, and lived without the constant burden of drama. Over those 3 months, I heard through acquaintances that she had deleted most of her posts where she proclaimed herself a victim. It seems that several witnesses who saw her seen at my work event had come forward to refute her without reservation, knowing it didn't make me happy, but it did confirm something I already suspected. She always told the version that made her look like a martyr. Eventually, she stopped trying to contact me, so I assumed she must have found someone else willing to endure that vicious cycle of attention, crisis, and constant validation. I thought that was the end of it, that we had closed that chapter. I was naive enough to believe it, but I was wrong, and in a way I didn't imagine. In November, almost without looking for it, I met someone, Audrey, 29, a project manager at a tech company on the other side of the city. Our relationship started without expectations, almost like a social experiment to prove that the world didn't work like it did with Clara. My friend, tired of seeing me only between work and the gym, convinced me to download a dating app. "You can't let a destructive relationship close all doors," he said. I created a simple profile, no exaggerations, no trying to impress anyone. I spent several days swiping without much enthusiasm until Audrey's profile appeared, and there was something about her naturalness that instantly captivated me. She wasn't trying to sell an image or boast about an idealized life. Her photos were genuine, work meetings, walks with friends, a dog that seemed to be the center of her life. Her bio talked about stability and authenticity, a genuine desire to build something real after wasting years with people incapable of commitment. We started talking. What was initially casual conversation turned into a fluid, fun, comfortable exchange. Our first date was a Saturday coffee that turned into a 3-hour conversation. The staff at the place almost kicked us out because they were closing. That naturalness, that flow without pressure, was something I had forgotten existed. The second date was at a museum. She had an immense knowledge of art history, and I tried to impress her with facts I honestly half made up. Audrey noticed, laughed, and then explained the artworks with a passion I hadn't seen in anyone for years. It was a calm, honest afternoon without hidden agendas. The third outing ended with us watching movies at her apartment until dawn. And the most striking thing about that moment wasn't the kiss on the sofa, soft and unhurried, but that she didn't try to record it, photograph it, or post it. We were present, without an audience, without a stage. It was almost revolutionary. By January, things were progressing with a beautiful calmness. We had decided to take our time, but the potential was evident. She met Owen, who, after dealing with Clara for years, gave me his verdict with a simple, "I like her. And believe me, she's much better than the last one." For me, that was like receiving a seal of quality. In a couple of deep conversations, we shared our previous stories. I told her about my 3 years with Clara, about the humiliating scene at my work event, about how I walked out without looking back. Audrey confessed she had had her own collection of relationships with emotionally immature men, full of empty promises. We found common ground in the frustration of having given too much to people who only knew how to receive. Audrey was the opposite of Clara. She paid her share, respected my time, was interested in me because she wanted to, not to deflect, and celebrated my achievements without turning them into a reflection of herself. She treated me with something that shouldn't be extraordinary but felt like a treasure. Respect. And then came the night that changed everything. On a random Tuesday, we were having dinner at her apartment. She had made incredible homemade pasta with a dedication that surprised me. As we talked about unimportant things, her phone vibrated with a direct message on Instagram. She checked it with the calmness of someone who has nothing to hide until her expression changed. I saw her face transform as discomfort took over her eyes. "Ethan, do you know someone named Clara?" she asked. Her tone was neutral, but firm. I felt a pang in my stomach. "What did she say?" I asked, though a part of me already knew. Audrey, without a second of hesitation, handed me her phone. That gesture, that act of immediate transparency, said more about her than any speech. I read the message. It was long, calculated, written with the precision of someone who wants to destroy without seeming like the villain. Typical Clara, disguising poison as concern. "Hi, Audrey. I don't know if anyone has mentioned Ethan's past, but I felt I had to contact you, woman to woman." She continued with a series of subtle lies wrapped in a pitiful tone. That I abandoned her without explanation, that she was going through a difficult time with her mental health, that I was jealous, controlling, obsessive, that I checked her phone, that I isolated her from her friends, that I limited her independence. A completely invented portrait of me, adjusted to destroy what she could no longer have. It ended with a, "I don't want to cause problems, just warn you," which was exactly the opposite of her intention. There, with the phone in my hand and the dinner cooling on the table, I understood something very clearly. Clara wasn't finished with me. She had just been waiting for the right moment to try to ruin what I had built without her. The notification appeared on my phone with an almost ironic tone, as if the universe wanted to remind me that peace never lasted too long. "I promise," the message read, "I just thought you should know what you're getting into before you get too involved. I have screenshots and proof if you want to see them. Full conversations that show his controlling behavior. Please be careful. He's very good at faking normalcy at first, but sooner or later his mask falls off. If you need more information, message me privately. I'm just looking out for another woman." I stared at the text, feeling that strange blow that mixes hot and cold in your chest. 3 months of absolute silence. 3 months since her manipulation was exposed in front of dozens of people, since her attempt to publicly humiliate me backfired. And yet, there was Clara. Trying to sabotage my new relationship now that it was finally starting to progress. She didn't even know how she had found the woman I was seeing. She must have checked everything, my few posts, the scarce tagged photos, comments, mutual friends. A meticulous job that revealed a sincerely unsettling level of obsession. Imagining her spending hours checking profiles and connections just to locate someone I had only been dating for a couple of weeks made my stomach turn. And then crafting a manipulative message full of lies and insinuations to try to destroy something before it grew. 3 months. 3 months after everything ended. It was evident she hadn't let go of anything. Audrey, who was sitting across from me, looked at me with complete attention. Her face didn't express judgment, but alertness. "Is any of this true?" she asked cautiously. "Can I show you something before I answer?" I said, keeping my voice as firm as possible, even though rage was burning inside me. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I had saved everything related to the breakup. Screenshots from the weekend, everything exploded. Photos from the rooftop party with the times visible. Messages from Matt and Amanda corroborating every detail. There were also the comments from my colleagues reacting to the posts Clara had uploaded to play the victim before deleting them. I showed her the entire timeline. How she scorned me in front of my colleagues, how she asked me to leave, how I walked out without making a scene, how she later tried to reverse everything with emotional manipulation. Then I showed her the messages Clara sent in the following weeks. It was a gradual escalation. Come back first, then you're destroying everything, leading up to insinuations of guilt and veiled threats. Everything was chronologically ordered, like an X-ray of manipulation. Audrey reviewed each image calmly. Sometimes she enlarged a screenshot to read better. Other times, she paused for a long moment before continuing. Her expression shifted from concern to reflection, and then to a silent indignation that wasn't directed at me, but at what she was seeing. "She's trying to manipulate me into leaving you, before we can truly get to know each other," she finally said, her voice tight. "She's trying to destroy your happiness because she can't stand that you've moved on. This is twisted on a level I didn't imagine. I'm sorry I've dragged you into this," I said sincerely. "You shouldn't have to carry the drama I left behind." "Don't apologize for something you didn't do," she replied firmly. "You are not responsible for her decisions." She held my gaze without looking away for a second. It was one of those moments where a conversation sets the course of a relationship. "Did you really walk out that night without arguing?" "Yes." "She told me to leave, so I packed my things and walked out. I slept at Owen's place, and I swear it was the best decision I could have made." Audrey smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her features. "It makes sense. Walking away from that without making it worse shows an emotional maturity that's not common, especially in situations like that. But inside, I had already crossed a line. Until that moment, I had kept my distance, avoiding feeding the conflict. But for Clara to try to destroy a new relationship before it was even serious, that was something else. She had declared a silent war, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready to respond. That same night, I opened Instagram and drafted a carefully detailed post. I didn't mention Clara by name, but I didn't need to. Those who needed to understand would understand. Statement: if my ex-partner contacts someone I'm dating or any acquaintance of mine to warn them about me, here are some facts. I have full screenshots for any cropped text she may show. Several people present can confirm what happened the night of our breakup. I left because she asked me to in front of my colleagues. Trying to sabotage someone else's relationship months later is not concern, it's harassment. I have kept silent out of respect. But interfering in my life after so long crosses a line. This is the only warning. I tagged everyone who was at the party. Matt, Amanda, Felix the musician, my colleagues. I gave them the full context. In less than an hour, the comments started flooding in. Matt: confirm everything. Amanda: the evidence is clear. Felix: I was the guy she was flirting with that night. She never said she had a boyfriend. When he asked to talk, she ordered him to leave in front of everyone. What she's posting now is a fake version. Even some of Clara's own friends started leaving comments supporting my version. I wasn't the only one who had seen her manipulation. The next morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Clara had responded with a story of her own. It's sad when someone rewrites history to make themselves look like a hero. I only tried to warn another woman. Now I'm a victim of harassment from him and his friends. This confirms what I was worried about. But the comments weren't what she expected. Girl, I was there. You told him to leave. He left. And now you're harassing his new partner. That is worrying. Clara, I love you, but this is manipulation. Stop cropping screenshots. Own up to what happened. The post was deleted in less than 3 hours, but the screenshots were already circulating. Her public image began to crack. That Friday, I saw Audrey again. We met at a quiet coffee shop, a small place with wooden tables and the smell of freshly baked bread. When I arrived, she was already there, leaning over her cup while checking her phone. Looking up, I could tell she had been following everything that happened on social media over the last few hours. Quite a week, she said as she motioned for me to sit down. I won't lie to you. It was intense watching it all unfold live. I imagined you were following it, I replied, placing my phone face down on the table. It's been a lot. Audrey took a deep breath before speaking. I have to tell you something, she began cautiously. For a moment, when I received that message, I thought I should step back. Not because I thought you were guilty, but because I didn't want to end up trapped in something that wasn't mine. I nodded. I understood perfectly. And you have every right to, I said. If the roles were reversed, I probably would have done the same. She crossed her arms, thoughtful. But after seeing everything you shared, what your friends said, what the people who were there wrote, it was like having a blindfold removed. I don't know how you endured that kind of manipulation for so long without losing your mind. Sometimes you normalize what you shouldn't, I replied, but I'm not in that place anymore. Audrey rested her elbows on the table and looked at me with a soft but firm expression. I want you to know something, she said. I'm not going to judge you for your past. You were honest with me from the beginning, and when I asked for explanations, you gave them to me with proof, not excuses. That says more about you than any post. So? I asked, leaving the sentence unfinished. She smiled, a calm, confident smile. So, I want to keep getting to know you. If you want to, too, I'm not running away because of someone else. I felt the tension I had carried in my chest all week finally ease. Of course I want to, I replied. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking about anything but the recent drama, movies, trips we both wanted to take, our jobs, small anecdotes of daily life, normal, healthy conversations, without hidden meanings. It was such an overwhelming contrast to what I had lived before that I was almost surprised by how natural it felt. Over the following weeks, things between us continued to flow. No pressure, no artificial ups and downs, no mind games. Just two people trying to get to know each other from a real place. And for the first time in a long time, I felt I was building something worthwhile. I heard little about Clara afterward. Not because I looked for her, I had her blocked everywhere, but because some mutual friends told me what happened. Her attempt to regain control backfired. Several people stopped collaborating with her. Some brands suspended promotions, and she had to temporarily close her public accounts due to the flood of comments asking for explanations. Apparently, the impact also reached her work on social media because her numbers dropped visibly and never recovered. I, for my part, preferred not to give her any more space in my life. It wasn't worth continuing to examine the ruins she had left behind. 6 months later, Audrey and I are still dating. We aren't rushing anything. We aren't letting third parties interfere. And every day I confirm that walking away from all of that was the best decision I could have made. I didn't get back followers, or reputation, or anything like that. I regained something much more important, peace of mind. And this time, I don't intend to let it go.